The medical facility on Prime was cold and sterile. Blue lights hummed softly above rows of beds where soldiers lay motionless. Their gray skin had turned pale. Their four eyes stared at nothing. Some trembled beneath thin blankets while others whispered words that made no sense. Doctor walked between the beds with heavy steps. She had served the Empire for 40 cycles. She had treated soldiers wounded by plasma burns, radiation sickness, and nerve toxins. But she had never seen anything like this. These soldiers had no physical wounds. Their bodies were healthy, yet something had broken inside their minds. She stopped beside a young warrior named. He had been a promising officer before the invasion of Earth. Now he lay curled like a frightened child. His mandibles clicked together rapidly as he muttered the same phrase over and over. They smiled, they smiled, they smiled. Checked her and recorded his condition. Was the 27th soldier she had examined that morning. All of them showed the same symptoms: sleeplessness, panic attacks, refusal to eat, and nightmares, terrible nightmares that made them scream in the darkness. The High Command had sent her a message demanding answers. The invasion fleet had retreated from Earth after only 6 standard days of ground combat. 6 days. The Empire had conquered entire star systems in less time. They had brought their finest warriors, their most advanced weapons, and their best commanders. Yet they had fled from a primitive world that had not even achieved faster than light travel. Needed to understand what had happened. She activated the recording device beside the bed and spoke gently. "Can you tell me about Earth? Can you tell me what you saw?" The young soldier's eyes focused on her face. For a moment he seemed almost normal. Then his body began to shake. "The humans," he whispered. "They were not supposed to fight. Intelligence told us they were soft creatures. They spent their time arguing with each other. They had no united government, no proper military structure. We thought they would surrender when they saw our ships in their sky." Paused. His breathing became rapid and shallow. "We landed near one of their cities. The buildings were primitive but numerous. Our commander ordered us to advance and secure the area. We expected civilians to run. We expected their soldiers to hide. That is what every other species does when they face the might of the Empire." A sound escaped from his throat. It was something between a laugh and a sob. "But the humans did not run. They came toward us, and they were smiling." Leaned closer. "Smiling? You mean they showed their teeth? Perhaps it was a threat display." Shook his head violently. "No, it was joy, pure joy. They were happy to fight us. They charged at our defensive lines with weapons that should have been useless against our armor. They screamed words we could not understand, and they smiled the entire time." He covered his eyes with his clawed hands. "Do you understand what I am telling you? They were not afraid. They did not care that they might die. Some of them laughed as our plasma fire tore through their ranks. They laughed, and they kept coming." Recorded every word. Her scientific mind struggled to process this information. Fear was a survival mechanism. Every intelligent species in the galaxy felt fear when facing death. It was the fundamental response that kept creatures alive. How could humans lack this basic instinct? She moved to another bed where a senior officer named Commander lay staring at the ceiling. He had led 3 successful planetary invasions before Earth. Now he flinched at every sound. "Commander," said, "the High Command needs your report. What tactical observations can you share?" Turned his head slowly. The empty look in his eyes made uncomfortable. "Tactics," he repeated. "You want to know about tactics? Very well. I will tell you what I learned about human tactics." He sat up in his bed. His voice became mechanical, as if he was reciting a nightmare he could not escape. "On the second day, we had established a fortified position outside their city. Our energy shields were at full power. Our heavy weapons covered every approach. By all military logic, any attack against our position would be suicide." His mandibles trembled. "The humans attacked anyway. They came in small groups at first, testing our defenses. When they found weaknesses, they exploited them without hesitation. They sacrificed themselves to create openings for their comrades. One human threw himself onto a plasma vent to shield his squad from the explosion. He was still smiling when he died. The commander's voice cracked. We killed hundreds of them, hundreds, and for every human that fell, two more appeared. They did not retreat. They did not negotiate. They adapted to our weapons with terrifying speed. By the third day, they had figured out how to disable our shields using primitive chemical explosives. By the fourth day, they were using our own weapons against us. Interrupted. How did they learn to operate technology so quickly? I do not know, admitted. But I watched a human female pick up a fallen plasma rifle and figure out its controls in less than 30 of their seconds. She looked at it like it was a puzzle to be solved. Then she looked at us like we were prey to be hunted. She was smiling too. The commander fell silent for a long moment. On the fifth day, they attacked at night. Humans can barely see in darkness. Our night vision should have given us complete advantage, but they did not rely on sight. They moved by sound and smell. They painted their faces with dark colors and crawled through mud and rain. They appeared inside our perimeter without warning. Our sentries died before they could raise an alarm. His entire body was shaking now. I saw things that night that I will never forget. Human warriors fighting hand to hand against our elite guards. Our soldiers were bigger and stronger. Our claws could tear through metal. But the humans fought with a ferocity that explanation. They bit and scratched and stabbed. They used their own bodies as weapons. And through all of it, they smiled those horrible smiles. Had heard enough. She thanked the commander and moved through the ward, collecting more testimonies. Each story was worse than the last. A tank commander described how a single human had climbed onto his vehicle and opened the hatch with bare hands that were bleeding and broken. The human had dropped an explosive inside and jumped clear. He had waved at the crew before the detonation. He had been smiling. A communications officer recalled intercepting human radio transmissions. Instead of fear or panic, the humans were making jokes. They gave each other encouragement. They cheered when they destroyed vehicles. They treated the invasion like a sport they intended to win. A medical technician described treating wounded humans who had been captured. Even facing certain death, the humans refused to show despair. One of them had told jokes to the guards. Another had attempted to escape despite having 3 broken limbs. When asked why they fought so hard, a dying human had simply said, "Because we like it." Compiled her findings into a report for the high command. She sat alone in her office, reading through the testimonies again and again. A pattern was beginning to emerge. Humans were not fearless. The captured ones showed normal stress responses. They felt pain and sadness and terror just like any other species. But something in their nature allowed them to override these feelings. Something let them convert fear into excitement. Something made them smile in the face of death. She searched through the cultural data that intelligence had gathered before the invasion. Most of it focused on human weaknesses. Their short, their fragile bodies, their tendency toward internal conflict. But buried in the files, she found something else. Human history was filled with violence. They had fought wars against each other for thousands of years. They had developed countless methods of killing. More importantly, they had developed a warrior culture that celebrated courage and sacrifice. Their stories praised heroes who died fighting impossible odds. Their songs honored those who laughed at death. Humans did not see war as something to be avoided. They saw it as a challenge to be overcome, a test to be passed. Some of them even saw it as entertainment. Closed her files and sat in silence. She finally understood why the invasion had failed. The Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had assumed that all intelligent species shared the same survival instincts. They had assumed that overwhelming force would break the human spirit. But humans were different. They were predators who had spent hunting each other. They were survivors of extinction events and ice ages and plagues. They had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. Death was not strange to them. It was an old companion they had learned to embrace. And worst of all, they enjoyed fighting. The adrenaline, the challenge, the chance to prove themselves. Where other species saw horror, humans saw opportunity. Where others felt despair, humans felt excitement. She thought about the soldiers in her medical ward. These were hardened warriors who had faced death many times. Yet the memory of smiling humans charging into battle had shattered their minds. It was not the violence that traumatized them. It was the realization that they had encountered something that should not exist. Predators who hunted for pleasure. Warriors who welcomed death as a friend. Began writing her recommendation to the High Command. Her words were simple and clear. The planet Earth must be quarantined immediately. All invasion plans must be canceled permanently. The human species represents a threat unlike any the Empire has faced before. They cannot be conquered through force. They cannot be intimidated through displays of power. Any attempt to fight them will only make them stronger. She paused before adding her final warning. The humans have a saying that our translators found difficult to interpret. They call it fun. Fighting is fun to them. War is fun. If we continue to engage them in combat, we are not punishing them. We are giving them exactly what they want. We are giving them something to smile about. Submitted her report and turned off the lights in her office. Somewhere in the ward, a soldier screamed himself awake from another nightmare. The sound echoed through the empty corridors like a warning that would haunt the Empire for generations to come. The humans were smiling, and now the entire galaxy had reason to be afraid.